What if I told you that your memories aren't as reliable as you think? What if some of your most cherished or traumatic memories never even happened? Imagine recalling a childhood event so vividly, the colors, the sounds, the emotions, all feeling real. But then, you find out that it never took place. How does that happen? How can our brains betray us like this? Memory is supposed to be our personal archive, a storage system that preserves our past experiences, shaping who we are. We rely on it for everything: our relationships, our beliefs, even our identity. Yet, science tells us that memory isn't a perfect recording of the past. It's fluid, reconstructive, and alarmingly unreliable. What we remember today may not be exactly what happened yesterday, last year, or even decades ago. The unsettling truth is that your brain is constantly rewriting your past without you even realizing it. This raises an important question. Can we really trust what we remember? If our own minds can deceive us, how much of our past is actually real? This isn't just a philosophical question, it has serious consequences. Eyewitness testimony has sent innocent people to prison. Repressed memories have ruined lives. Collective false memories have shaped historical events. The truth about memory is far more complex, and today, we're going to unravel it. In this video, we'll dive deep into the science of memory, how it works, why it fails, and the surprising ways it can be manipulated. You'll learn how your mind creates false memories without you knowing, why two people can remember the same event completely differently, and how scientists have implanted fake memories into real people. We'll explore shocking case studies, groundbreaking experiments, and the latest neuroscience findings that prove your memory is not as trustworthy as you think. Stay with us as we expose the fragility of human memory, uncover the psychological tricks your brain plays on you, and reveal the scientific evidence that will make you question everything you think you remember. By the end of this video, you might start doubting your own memories, but that just might be the first step to understanding the real truth about your mind. How memory works, the science behind recollection. Memory is often thought of as a filing cabinet where past experiences are stored, ready to be pulled out whenever we need them. But the truth is far more complex. The brain doesn't store memories in neat little boxes, nor does it function like a video recorder that replays events exactly as they happened. Instead, memory is a dynamic and reconstructive process, influenced by emotions, external stimuli, and even our expectations. The way we remember things follows three key stages: encoding, storage, and retrieval. These processes determine whether a moment is burned into our memory forever or lost within seconds. Every single experience, whether a fleeting conversation or a life-changing event, undergoes this journey in the brain. But how does it all work? Encoding, the first step to remembering. Before a memory can exist, it must first be encoded. Encoding is the process of converting sensory input into a format the brain can understand and store. Every sight, sound, taste, and emotion you experience is picked up by your senses and transmitted to the brain for processing. But here's where it gets tricky: not everything gets encoded. The brain is constantly bombarded with information, but it doesn't treat all of it equally. It prioritizes details that are emotionally significant, novel, or repeated over time. That's why you may vividly remember where you were during a shocking news event, but forget what you had for lunch 3 days ago. This phenomenon is known as the flashbulb memory effect. Emotional and dramatic moments are more likely to be deeply encoded. Neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine play a crucial role in encoding. When something emotionally intense happens, these chemicals flood the brain, strengthening the connections between neurons and making the event more likely to be stored as a long-term memory. This is why traumatic experiences often feel impossible to forget. However, the brain is selective, and not all details are captured accurately. This means that even our strongest memories may be missing pieces, or worse, contain distortions. Storage, where memories lie. Once an experience is encoded, it moves to storage, where the brain decides whether to keep it short-term or long-term. This process depends on the hippocampus, a small, seahorse-shaped structure deep in the brain. The hippocampus acts like a temporary storage center, deciding which experiences are important enough to be transferred to long-term memory. Short-term memory is extremely limited. Psychologist George Miller's famous 7 plus or minus 2 rule suggests that, at any given moment, humans can only hold about 7 pieces of information in their short-term memory. That's why phone numbers are typically 7 digits long. It's the brain's natural capacity for retaining information in the short term. If a memory is not rehearsed or reinforced, it fades quickly. But if the brain deems it significant, either because of repetition, emotional weight, or personal relevance, the hippocampus transfers it to long-term storage, where it can last for days, years, or even a lifetime. Interestingly, long-term memories don't live in a single place. Instead, they are spread across different regions of the brain, linked together by neural pathways. This means that a single memory is actually a network of details scattered throughout the cerebral cortex, and recalling it requires the brain to reassemble these pieces. The problem: every time a memory is retrieved, it's vulnerable to distortion. Retrieval: why memory is never perfect. Retrieval is the process of bringing stored memories back into conscious awareness. Every time you recall a past event, your brain reconstructs it from scattered fragments. But here's the catch: retrieval is not a perfect replay. Instead of watching a stored video, you're piecing together details, filling in blanks with assumptions, and even modifying the memory based on new information. This is why two people can remember the same event completely differently. Small changes in wording, suggestions from others, or even the passage of time can reshape a memory. Studies have shown that even subtle influences, like hearing a leading question, can alter how a person remembers an event. This phenomenon, known as memory distortion, is one of the biggest reasons eyewitness testimony is often unreliable. One of the most famous experiments demonstrating this effect was conducted by psychologist Elizabeth Loftus. In a groundbreaking study, participants were shown a video of a car accident and later asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? Another group was asked the same question, but with the word smashed replaced with bumped. The results were astonishing. Those who heard the word smashed recalled the accident as being far more severe than those who heard bumped, even though they had seen the exact same video. This proves that memories aren't just stored facts, they are fragile reconstructions, influenced by the way they are retrieved. Every time you recall a memory, you risk rewriting it, often without realizing it. How the brain prioritizes information. Not all memories are created equal. The brain decides which moments to keep and which to discard based on several factors. Emotional impact plays a significant role, which is why people tend to remember emotionally charged events more vividly than neutral ones. Novelty is another key factor. Experiences that are unusual, surprising, or new are more likely to stick in memory because they stand out from the ordinary. Repetition also strengthens memories. The more times a piece of information is rehearsed, the stronger the neural pathways associated with it become. This is why studying over time is far more effective than cramming. It gives the brain multiple opportunities to reinforce the connections between neurons, making recall easier. However, just because something is well remembered doesn't mean it's accurate. The reconstructive nature of memory means that even strong memories are vulnerable to errors, biases, and outside influences. The brain is not a camera, memory is an illusion. One of the most fascinating discoveries in neuroscience is that the brain does not function like a camera. It does not capture moments and store them exactly as they happened. Instead, it constructs memories using a combination of actual details, expectations, and imagination. Neuroscientists have found that the same brain regions activated when remembering the past are also active when imagining the future. This suggests that memory and imagination are deeply intertwined, making it easier for false memories to form. The brain doesn't just recall, it reconstructs, and in doing so, it often alters the truth. This explains why people can misremember details of past events, even when they feel completely confident in their recollection. It also sheds light on the Mandela Effect, a phenomenon where large groups of people collectively misremember facts, names, or historical events. The unreliable nature of memory is an essential part of human experience, shaping how we perceive the world and ourselves. But it is far from perfect. Memories change over time, they are influenced by emotions, and they can even be implanted by suggestion. The next time you recall an important moment from your past, consider this: is it the truth, or is it simply a version of reality that your brain has created? Science continues to reveal just how fragile human memory is, and as we dive deeper into this topic, we will uncover even more shocking truths about how false memories are formed, how easily the brain can be manipulated, and why we should always question the accuracy of what we remember. How reliable is memory? The disturbing truth: memory is the foundation of how we understand the world, but what if that foundation is built on a fragile, ever-changing structure? We like to think that our memories are like a personal archive, a collection of past events that remain unchanged over time. But in reality, memory is anything but stable. It is fluid, unreliable, and easily influenced. Even the strongest, most vivid memories can be distorted, altered, or completely false. The shocking truth is that our brain fills in gaps, makes assumptions, and even fabricates entire events without us realizing it. The question isn't just whether our memory is unreliable, it's how much of what we recall is even real. Science has uncovered disturbing evidence that shows just how easily human memory can be manipulated, rewritten, and even weaponized. From the courtroom to everyday life, the consequences of false memories are far-reaching. What if the memories you trust the most are actually the ones that lie to you? Memory distortion, how the brain fills in missing details. Memory is not a recording device. It is an active reconstruction process, meaning that every time we recall an event, the brain rebuilds it using stored fragments. But here's where things get tricky. If a detail is missing, the brain fills in the gaps with assumptions, expectations, or even entirely new information. This process is called memory distortion, and it happens far more often than people realize. Imagine seeing a car accident and later being asked to describe the driver. If you didn't focus on their clothing, your brain might automatically assume they wore something typical, like jeans and a jacket. The moment that assumption is made, it becomes part of the memory, and the next time you recall the event, you will remember it as if it were real. This happens because memory is not stored in a single place. It is a network of details scattered across different areas of the brain, and when we retrieve those details, the brain tries to make sense of them as a complete picture. The problem is that every time a memory is retrieved, it is modified before being stored again. In other words, every time you remember something, you risk changing it without knowing. Over time, even small changes can accumulate, creating an entirely different version of the past, one that feels just as real as the original. This is why people often argue over shared experiences, with each person recalling the same event differently. It's not because someone is lying, it's because their memories have evolved in different ways. False memory syndrome. Can people recall events that never happened? Memory is not just prone to distortion, it can also be completely fabricated. False memory syndrome is a psychological phenomenon where people recall detailed, vivid memories of events that never actually occurred. These memories feel as real as genuine ones, and once implanted, they are incredibly difficult to disprove. One of the most shocking cases of false memory syndrome happened in the 1990s, when therapists encouraged patients to recover repressed memories of childhood abuse. Many people came forward with horrifying stories, only for later investigations to reveal that the events never happened. The memories had been implanted through suggestion, repetition, and reinforcement. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus, a leading expert in false memory research, has demonstrated just how easy it is to implant fake memories. In her famous Lost in the Mall experiment, participants were told a fabricated story about being lost in a shopping mall as a child. Over time, many of them began to remember the event in vivid detail, even adding extra information that was never suggested. False memories are not just an individual issue, they can shape entire societies. Large groups of people sometimes recall the same incorrect details, a phenomenon known as the Mandela Effect. The Mandela Effect: why do large groups of people misremember the same events? The Mandela Effect occurs when a significant number of people collectively misremember the same facts, names, or historical events. The term was coined when people around the world falsely remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, even though he was released and later became president of South Africa. Since then, the Mandela Effect has been observed in many cultural references. People distinctly remember the Berenstain Bears being spelled as Berenstein Bears, Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father," instead of, "No, I am your father," and Monopoly's mascot having a monocle, even though he never did. One possible explanation for the Mandela Effect is confabulation, where the brain merges memories, fills in gaps, or alters details based on expectation. Another theory is that misinformation spreads easily, especially in the digital age, where false facts get repeated so often that they become widely accepted as truth. Some even believe in alternate realities or parallel universes, suggesting that these false memories come from a different timeline. While that may be an entertaining theory, science provides a simpler explanation. Memory is fragile, and the more people share a false memory, the more likely it is to feel real. The Loftus and Palmer experiment: how language can change memory. Memory can be manipulated by words alone. In a groundbreaking study, psychologists Elizabeth Loftus and John Palmer, 1974, showed participants a video of a car accident. Later, they were asked to estimate how fast the cars were going. But there was a twist: each participant was asked the question in slightly different ways. Some were asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? While others were asked, how fast were the cars going when they bumped into each other? The results were shocking. Participants who heard the word smashed estimated much higher speeds and even recalled seeing broken glass, even though there was none in the video. Those who heard bumped estimated lower speeds and had fewer false details in their memory. This study proved that the way a question is framed can change what a person remembers. It also explains why eyewitness testimony is often unreliable. Small changes in wording, tone, or suggestion can alter memories in powerful ways. Eyewitness testimony: one of the weakest forms of evidence. Eyewitness testimony has been a cornerstone of the legal system for decades, but research has shown that it is one of the least reliable forms of evidence. People confidently identify suspects, recall crime scenes, and testify in court, only to be proven wrong by DNA evidence years later. One of the most infamous cases involved Ronald Cotton, a man wrongfully convicted of rape and burglary based on eyewitness testimony. The victim was absolutely certain he was the attacker, but after spending over a decade in prison, DNA evidence proved that another man was guilty. Cotton's conviction was based on a false memory, one that felt completely real to the victim. The Innocence Project, an organization dedicated to overturning wrongful convictions, has found that nearly 70% of wrongful convictions later overturned by DNA evidence were based on mistaken eyewitness testimony. This raises a disturbing question: how many innocent people are still in prison because of faulty memories? How often does memory fail? The shocking statistic research shows that memory failures are not the exception, they are the rule. Studies estimate that 50% of people misremember key details of personal events within just a few years. A shocking 25% of people can be convinced they committed a crime they never actually did, simply through repeated questioning. Every day, people trust their memories to make decisions, solve problems, and recall their past. But science has proven that our brains are not designed for accuracy, they are designed for efficiency. The memories you cherish, the stories you tell, the past you believe in, all of them could be distorted, rewritten, or even entirely false. As we move forward, we will uncover even more shocking cases of how memories can be manipulated, altered, and used against us. What if your most vivid memory is actually a lie? False memories and how they are implanted. Memory is not just unreliable, it can be completely fabricated. False memories are among the most disturbing and fascinating aspects of human cognition, showing that people can vividly recall events that never actually happened. These are not just minor distortions of real experiences but fully detailed, emotionally charged memories that feel completely real. The unsettling reality is that false memories can be planted, reinforced, and even weaponized, affecting everything from personal relationships to legal proceedings. Scientists have spent decades studying this phenomenon, and the results are shocking. People can be convinced they were lost in a shopping mall as a child when they never were. They can recall crimes they never committed, childhood traumas that never occurred, or even entirely fictional events as though they were part of their personal history. The consequences of these memory distortions are profound, influencing court cases, criminal investigations, and even social movements. The question is no longer whether false memories exist, it's how easily they can be Elizabeth Loftus research, How Simple Suggestions Create False Memories. One of the most groundbreaking researchers in the field of false memories is Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, a cognitive psychologist who has spent decades proving just how malleable and unreliable human memory is. Through a series of experiments, Loftus demonstrated that with just a simple suggestion, a person's memory can be altered, distorted, or completely rewritten. Her research gained international attention when she conducted studies on eyewitness testimony, proving that leading questions, misinformation, and external suggestions can create entirely false memories. People who witnessed an event could be easily manipulated into recalling details that never happened just by changing the way a question was asked. Her findings were so significant that they transformed the way legal systems handle eyewitness accounts, exposing the deep flaws in human memory and the risks of relying on recollection as evidence. Loftus showed that suggestion alone is powerful enough to make people believe in events that never occurred. If someone is repeatedly asked about a fabricated incident, they will eventually start to remember details that never existed. The more they visualize it, the more real it feels, and over time, these fabricated memories become just as vivid and emotional as real ones. Real case study, false memories in therapy and fabricated abuse claims. One of the most alarming real-world consequences of false memories emerged in the 1980s and 1990s, when therapists began encouraging patients to recover memories of childhood abuse. Many people who originally had no recollection of traumatic events were led to believe they had been victims, often through repeated suggestion, hypnosis, or leading questions. This practice, known as recovered memory therapy, resulted in a wave of accusations that tore families apart. Many of these cases involved completely false allegations. Patients who had no initial memory of abuse began recalling graphic and detailed accounts after prolonged therapy sessions. These memories felt real, vivid, and emotionally intense, but when investigated, they often lacked any supporting evidence. Some individuals later realized their memories had been implanted by suggestion, and lawsuits were filed against therapists for creating false trauma through unethical practices. One of the most famous cases involved a woman who accused her father of sexual abuse after undergoing memory recovery therapy. The allegations were severe, and despite the absence of physical evidence, the father was convicted and sentenced to prison. Years later, the woman recanted her claims, realizing that the memories had been implanted by her therapist, who had encouraged her to visualize abuse scenarios and reinterpret past events. By the time she understood what had happened, the damage was done. Her father had lost years of his life due to a completely false memory. The tragic reality is that false memories have led to countless wrongful accusations, destroyed reputations, and even sent innocent people to prison. The science behind memory manipulation shows that the brain is highly susceptible to suggestion, and what we believe to be our deepest truths can, in fact, be manufactured by external influences. The "lost in the mall" experiment, how people can be convinced they experienced something that never happened. One of the most famous experiments proving the power of suggestion in memory formation is the "Lost in the Mall" study, conducted by Elizabeth Loftus. In this experiment, participants were told 4 stories about their childhood. 3 were real, but 1 was fabricated. The false story described being lost in a shopping mall as a child, experiencing fear, and later being rescued by a kind stranger. Initially, participants denied any memory of the event, but after repeated questioning and encouragement to remember, something shocking happened. Many started recalling the event in vivid detail, describing emotions, surroundings, and even interactions that never actually occurred. Some even added extra details that were never suggested, such as the name of the stranger who found them or what they were wearing at the time. This experiment demonstrated just how easily false memories can be implanted. The fact that participants genuinely believed these events happened, despite them being completely fabricated, proves that memory is not a recording of the past, it is a reconstruction shaped by suggestion and belief. This has profound implications, especially in police interrogations, therapy sessions, and eyewitness testimonies. If a simple childhood story can be implanted, what about more serious events? What if people can be convinced they committed crimes they never actually did? How social media and misinformation create collective false memory. In today's digital world, false memories are not just an individual problem, they spread across entire populations. The rise of social media, misinformation, and viral content has created new ways for false memories to form at an unprecedented scale. A single misleading news headline, an altered image, or a manipulated video can cause millions of people to remember something that never happened. This is why conspiracy theories thrive. Once people believe a false narrative, their brains actively reinforce it. Each time they rethink, retell, or discuss the event, the false memory strengthens, making it feel more real. Fake news stories about political events, celebrity scandals, and historical inaccuracies spread so quickly that many people internalize them before verifying the facts. Once a false memory is planted, it's difficult to erase, and even when proven wrong, people often continue believing the false version because it feels so real. This shows that memory is not just vulnerable to manipulation on an individual level. It can shape entire societies, influence public perception, and rewrite history. The dangers of false confessions and repressed memory therapy. False memories don't just distort personal history, they can have life-altering consequences in the justice system. Studies have found that false confessions are far more common than people think, often because suspects genuinely come to believe they committed a crime they never did. When subjected to high-pressure interrogations, people can be led to believe they were involved in an event, even if they had no prior memory of it. Police tactics, leading questions, and repetitive suggestions can cause a suspect to internalize a false narrative, sometimes to the point where they will voluntarily confess to a crime they never committed. There have been multiple cases where individuals wrongly confessed to murder, robbery, or assault simply because they were manipulated into believing they were guilty. Some later recalled specific details about crimes they could not have possibly committed, further proving how easily memory can be rewritten under pressure. Repressed memory therapy has also been highly controversial, as it often leads to fabricated memories of abuse, trauma, or crime. The practice encourages patients to dig deep into their subconscious, often leading to vivid but false recollections of extreme events. Many people have accused family members, teachers, or public figures of crimes based on memories that were later proven to be entirely fabricated. Memory is far more fragile and manipulatable than we would like to believe. What we recall as absolute truth may never have happened at all, and as we continue to explore this subject, we will uncover even more shocking cases of memory manipulation that challenge everything we think we know about reality. How trauma and emotions affect memory. Memory is never neutral. It is shaped by emotions, heightened by fear, and influenced by stress. Some moments are burned into the brain with absolute clarity, while others vanish, never to be recalled again. Nowhere is this more apparent than in memories linked to trauma. Whether it's a near-death experience, an act of violence, or a moment of extreme fear, trauma has the power to either enhance memory with vivid detail or erase it completely. One of the great mysteries of neuroscience is why people respond to trauma in such different ways. Some victims recall their experiences with razor-sharp accuracy, unable to forget even the smallest details, while others develop memory gaps so severe that they have no recollection at all. Some people even misremember trauma entirely, distorting reality in ways that don't match the facts. These distortions aren't intentional, they are the brain's survival mechanisms at work. The question is, why does this happen? How can one person relive a traumatic event in slow motion while another forgets it entirely? The science behind trauma, stress, and memory formation is complex, but one thing is clear: the brain does not record traumatic events the way we think it does. It reacts, it adapts, and sometimes, it rewrites history altogether. Why traumatic memories are sometimes repressed and sometimes exaggerated. Trauma affects memory in two extreme ways. It can either be permanently ingrained or completely suppressed. Some people remember traumatic events with excruciating detail, experiencing flashbacks, nightmares, and intrusive thoughts. Others seem to forget everything, as if the event never happened at all. This contrast has puzzled scientists and psychologists for decades, and it all comes down to how the brain processes fear and stress. When faced with danger, the brain's priority is survival, not memory formation. The body enters a state of fight, flight, or freeze, and stress hormones flood the brain. If the brain perceives the event as life-threatening, it may enhance memory storage so that the person remembers every detail, helping him avoid similar danger in the future. But if the trauma is too overwhelming, the brain may shut down the memory altogether, a phenomenon known as dissociative amnesia. Repressed memories remain one of the most controversial topics in psychology. Some researchers believe that traumatic events can be buried deep in the subconscious, only to resurface years or decades later. Others argue that what seems like a recovered memory is often a false memory, influenced by external suggestion rather than true experience. The truth is likely somewhere in between. Trauma can be partially forgotten, but it is rarely completely erased. The role of PTSD in memory distortion. For those who remember trauma vividly, the experience can be relentless and overwhelming. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, is a condition where trauma rewires the brain, causing memories to feel as though they are happening in real time rather than belonging to the past. People with PTSD often experience hyper-realistic flashbacks, where sights, sounds, and emotions return with full intensity. But here's where it gets complicated. PTSD doesn't just preserve memories, it also distorts them. Traumatic memories are often fragmented, replayed out of order, and influenced by emotional states. Some details become exaggerated, while others fade away completely. This is why many PTSD survivors struggle to give consistent accounts of their experiences, despite being absolutely certain of their memories. Studies show that the amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center, becomes hyperactive in PTSD patients, making emotional memories feel stronger and more persistent. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for logical thinking and organization, weakens, making it harder for people to separate past trauma from present reality. The result is a memory system that feels terrifyingly real, yet disturbingly unreliable. Why eyewitnesses to traumatic events are often unreliable. The legal system has long relied on eyewitness testimony as one of the most powerful forms of evidence, but research shows that memory distortions are most common in situations involving high stress and trauma. This means that the witnesses who are most emotionally impacted by a crime are often the least reliable in recalling what actually happened. Studies have found that victims of violent crimes, accidents, or disasters often report contradictory details, even when they believe their recollections are completely accurate. The stress of the moment, combined with the brain's tendency to fill in missing details, can create false memories that feel just as real as true ones. In police investigations, this becomes a major issue. Witnesses may unintentionally misidentify suspects, provide conflicting statements, or change their accounts over time without realizing it. This is not because they are lying, it's because their brains are struggling to piece together a traumatic event in a way that makes sense. The neuroscience of memory under stress. Traumatic events trigger a neurochemical storm inside the brain, affecting how memories are encoded, stored, and retrieved. Two key hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, play a crucial role in this process. Cortisol, known as the stress hormone, helps the brain determine whether to store or suppress a memory. In moderate amounts, it enhances memory formation, but when levels are too high, it can disrupt the hippocampus, the brain's primary memory storage center. This explains why some people remember trauma too vividly, while others experience memory gaps. Adrenaline, on the other hand, locks in high-intensity experiences, creating memories that feel sharp, detailed, and emotionally charged. This is why people can remember exactly where they were and what they were doing during moments of extreme fear, such as a car accident or a natural disaster. However, just because a memory feels vivid doesn't mean it's accurate. Adrenaline-enhanced memories can still be distorted by emotions, assumptions, and external influences. The brain's default mode under stress is survival, not accuracy. When processing trauma, the mind often prioritizes emotional intensity over factual precision, leading to memory gaps, distortions, or even complete fabrications. The 9/11 eyewitnesses and their conflicting memory. One of the most famous examples of memory distortion in traumatic events comes from the attacks on September 11, 2001. In the aftermath of the tragedy, thousands of eyewitnesses gave detailed accounts of what they saw, heard, and experienced. But over time, inconsistencies began to emerge. Some people recalled seeing the first plane hit the World Trade Center live on television, even though no live footage of the first impact existed. Others claimed they saw the towers collapse from a location they weren't actually at. Many eyewitnesses misremembered the exact order of events, the time it took for the buildings to fall, or even whether they saw people jump from the windows. The contradictions weren't due to dishonesty, they were the result of how trauma affects memory. Scientists studying the 9/11 memory phenomenon found that, over time, many eyewitnesses became more confident in their memories, even as their recollections became less accurate. In a study conducted 1 year after the attacks, 37% of participants changed key details of their memories compared to their initial accounts. 3 years later, that number had risen to 50%, meaning half of all people studied had rewritten their own history without realizing it. These findings reveal a harsh truth: even the most intense, emotionally charged memories are vulnerable to distortion. The fact that people felt more certain about their memories even as they became less accurate highlights one of the most troubling aspects of human recollection. Confidence does not equal accuracy, especially when trauma is involved. The fragility of memory in the face of trauma. The way the brain processes traumatic events is anything but straightforward. Some people remember too much, while others forget entirely. Stress hormones, emotional intensity, and the brain's need to make sense of overwhelming experiences all contribute to distorted, incomplete, or entirely false memories. As science continues to uncover the flaws in human recollection, one thing is clear: our memories, even the ones we trust the most, are not immune to error. What we remember is often not a perfect record of what happened, but a story our brain has constructed to help us cope, survive, and make sense of our experiences. The most shocking real-life memory errors. Memory shapes our reality, defines our identity, and dictates the way we perceive the world. But when memory fails, the consequences can be devastating. Some errors in memory result in minor misunderstandings or forgotten details, but others can destroy lives, create mass hysteria, and even rewrite history. The shocking truth is that some of the most unbelievable and bizarre events in human history were fueled by nothing more than faulty recollections and distorted memories. The brain does not store memories like a video recording. It reconstructs them, filling in gaps with assumptions, external influences, and even complete fabrications. Over time, false memories can become so vivid and detailed that they feel indistinguishable from real experiences. In some cases, people have been wrongly convicted of crimes based on nothing more than mistaken eyewitness testimony, while in others, entire societies have fallen into mass hysteria, driven by shared false memories that never actually happened. The terrifying reality is that false memories are not just personal errors. They can alter the course of real lives, destroy reputations, and even shape entire cultural movements. Some of the most disturbing cases in history prove just how dangerous memory errors can be when left unchecked. The case of Ronald Cotton, a man wrongly convicted based on false eyewitness memory. One of the most infamous examples of how unreliable human memory can be is the case of Ronald Cotton, a man who spent more than a decade in prison for a crime he did not commit, all because of a false memory. In 1984, a woman named Jennifer Thompson was attacked in her home. During the assault, she focused intensely on the attacker's face, determined to remember every detail so she could help the police catch the man responsible. Later, when presented with a police lineup, she confidently identified Ronald Cotton as her attacker. She was so certain of her memory that she testified against him in court, leading to a conviction and life sentence. Years later, advancements in DNA testing proved that Cotton was completely innocent. The real attacker was another man who had never even been considered a suspect. Despite her unwavering confidence in identifying Cotton, Jennifer Thompson had misremembered crucial details of the event, leading to a wrongful conviction. This case highlights a terrifying truth: confidence does not equal accuracy in memory recall. The human brain is highly susceptible to suggestion, external influences, and memory distortion, especially in high-stress situations. Cotton's wrongful conviction was not an isolated case. Over 70% of wrongful convictions overturned by DNA evidence involve mistaken eyewitness testimony. The legal system has long relied on memory as a powerful tool, but science has proven that memory is one of the weakest forms of evidence when it comes to determining the truth. The Satanic Panic of the 1980s-1990s, how false memories created mass hysteria. If a single false memory can destroy one person's life, what happens when entire communities start believing in events that never occurred? This is exactly what happened during the Satanic Panic, a moral hysteria that swept across the United States in the 1980s and 1990s, fueled by fabricated memories and mass delusion. The Satanic Panic began when therapists and law enforcement officials started investigating claims of ritualistic abuse in daycare centers, schools, and homes. Children and adults alike began recovering memories of satanic rituals, human sacrifices, and horrifying acts of violence. Some claimed they had been abducted by secret cults as children, forced to participate in rituals they had long forgotten, only to later recall them during therapy sessions. The problem? None of it was real. Not a single piece of verifiable evidence was ever found to support these wild claims. What started as isolated allegations snowballed into a full-blown panic, with dozens of innocent people being falsely accused, arrested, and even imprisoned based solely on recovered memories that never actually happened. Psychologists now recognize that many of these so-called memories were likely the result of suggestion, leading questions, and flawed therapeutic techniques. In many cases, patients undergoing recovered memory therapy were unknowingly implanted with false memories, believing in horrific events that never occurred. This terrifying chapter in history demonstrates just how easily false memories can spread, not just on an individual level, but across entire societies. Real-life alien abduction memories, and why they feel so real. Alien abduction stories are some of the most compelling and bizarre cases of false memory formation. Across the world, thousands of people claim to have been abducted by extraterrestrial beings, taken aboard spaceships, and subjected to experiments. Some report lost time, others recall strange markings on their bodies, and many describe eerily similar encounters, despite having never met one another. But why do so many people genuinely believe these experiences happened, despite no scientific evidence of alien contact? Neuroscience provides an answer. Many so-called abduction memories are believed to be the result of sleep paralysis, a phenomenon where a person wakes up unable to move, often accompanied by hallucinations, feelings of pressure on the chest, and an overwhelming sense of fear. Studies have shown that the human brain is highly susceptible to suggestion and confabulation. Many abductees describe recovered memories that surface during hypnosis or therapy, raising concerns that their experiences may be fabricated through suggestion rather than actual recall. Some researchers believe that media influence also plays a role. Before the 1960s, most alien abduction stories were vastly different, but once Hollywood and sci-fi novels popularized the image of gray aliens, reports of abductions suddenly began featuring identical descriptions. The most unsettling aspect is that abductees are not lying. They truly believe these events happened to them. This proves how memory is not only fragile but also capable of creating experiences that feel just as real as genuine ones. The case of Jean-Claude Romand, a man who lived a lie for decades and convinced even himself. Memory illusions are not always external, they can also be self-created. One of the most extreme cases of self-deception and memory fabrication is the story of Jean-Claude Romand, a man who spent nearly 2 decades living a lie, to the point where even he may have believed his own falsehoods. Romand convinced his friends, family, and colleagues that he was a highly successful doctor and researcher at the World Health Organization. In reality, he had never even completed medical school. He spent years pretending to go to work, faking meetings, and crafting an entire alternate reality for himself and those around him. As his deception unraveled, Roman's mind became trapped in the illusion he had built. When the truth began to surface, he murdered his entire family to prevent them from discovering his lies. The most disturbing part of his case is not just the deception, but the fact that he had lived in such deep denial for so long that he may have genuinely believed parts of his fabricated identity were real. His story is an extreme example of how memory and self-perception can be manipulated, even by our own minds. The ability of the brain to rewrite personal history shows that memory errors are not just accidental, they can be the foundation of an entire life. How memory illusions fuel conspiracy theories. From the Mandela Effect to historical revisionism, memory illusions have played a major role in shaping conspiracy theories, misinformation, and alternative realities. When large groups of people misremember key details about events, these errors can spread and reinforce false narratives. Many conspiracy theories thrive on collective false memories, where people recall things that never actually happened. Some believe the moon landing was faked, despite overwhelming evidence proving otherwise. Others claim that certain historical events played out differently, simply because their memory contradicts the facts. False memories have the power to reshape history, fuel paranoia, and alter the way society understands the past. The terrifying reality is that the human brain does not prioritize accuracy, it prioritizes coherence, which means that even the most outrageous distortions of reality can feel completely true. Memory is a double-edged sword. It allows us to relive, learn, and evolve, but it can also betray, deceive, and destroy. The question is, how many of our own memories can we actually trust? Can we improve memory or make it more reliable? Memory is fallible, but that doesn't mean it's beyond improvement. While human recollection is prone to distortion, forgetting, and even fabrication, researchers have discovered ways to enhance memory, improve retention, and even manipulate it using advanced technology. From ancient memorization techniques to modern neuroscience breakthroughs, the quest to strengthen and control memory has never been more advanced. The real question is whether memory can ever be made completely reliable. While we may never achieve a perfect, photographic recall of every moment, science suggests that memory can be trained, optimized, and even artificially enhanced. But as we explore these advancements, a deeper issue arises. If we gain the power to alter, implant, or delete memories, can we ever fully trust our own minds? Memory training techniques used by champions. Some individuals seem to have superhuman memory skills, capable of recalling thousands of digits, memorizing entire books, or instantly remembering names and faces. But the secret to their abilities is not genetic, it's technique. Memory champions around the world use specific training methods to maximize recall, proving that with the right approach, memory can be dramatically improved. One of the most powerful methods is the memory palace technique, a strategy used by world memory champions to store and retrieve large amounts of information. This technique dates back to ancient Greece, where orators memorized long speeches by associating each piece of information with a specific location in a familiar mental structure, such as a house or a street. By visualizing themselves walking through these locations, they could recall vast amounts of information in perfect order. Other effective memory strategies include chunking, spaced repetition, and visualization techniques. Chunking is the process of breaking down large amounts of information into smaller, manageable parts. This is why phone numbers are grouped into segments rather than being presented as long strings of digits. Spaced repetition involves reviewing information at increasing intervals, strengthening the neural connections responsible for long-term retention. Visualization techniques involve associating abstract concepts with vivid mental images, making them easier to recall. These techniques demonstrate that memory can be trained like a muscle. The more the brain is exercised using structured memorization methods, the stronger its recall abilities become. But lifestyle factors also play a crucial role in memory performance. How lifestyle choices affect memory. Memory is not just shaped by practice, it is also influenced by sleep, diet, and physical activity. The brain requires adequate rest, proper nutrition, and regular exercise to function at peak efficiency. Studies have repeatedly shown that lifestyle habits can either enhance or impair memory, sometimes to an extreme degree. Sleep is perhaps the most critical factor in memory consolidation. During deep sleep, the brain organizes and strengthens newly formed memories, transferring information from short-term storage to long-term retention. Research has shown that people who get fewer than 6 hours of sleep per night experience a significant decline in memory function. Sleep deprivation not only makes it harder to form new memories but also increases forgetfulness and cognitive decline over time. Diet plays an equally important role. The brain relies on specific nutrients to maintain neuroplasticity, the ability to form and strengthen neural connections. Omega-3 fatty acids, found in foods like salmon and walnuts, are known to enhance memory function and protect against cognitive decline. Turmeric, a spice rich in curcumin, has been shown to boost memory by reducing inflammation in the brain. Flavonoids, present in dark chocolate, berries, and green tea, improve blood flow to the brain, supporting better focus and recall. Exercise also has a profound impact on memory. Physical activity increases blood circulation, delivering oxygen and nutrients to brain cells while promoting the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, a protein that enhances learning and memory retention. People who exercise regularly show higher cognitive performance and a lower risk of memory-related diseases like Alzheimer's. These findings suggest that memory is not just about mental effort, it's also about taking care of the body. While memory champions rely on techniques, everyday individuals can greatly improve recall simply by optimizing their lifestyle. But what if science could take memory enhancement even further? The role of eye and neuroscience in memory enhancement. Modern neuroscience is exploring the frontiers of memory manipulation, using technology to enhance, erase, or even implant memories. While these ideas once belonged to science fiction, today they are becoming scientific reality. One of the most ambitious projects in memory research is Neuralink, the brain-computer interface company founded by Elon Musk. Neuralink is developing implantable brain chips designed to enhance cognitive abilities, including memory. The idea is that by linking the brain directly to artificial intelligence, people could access external storage for memories, instantly recall information, and even restore lost memories in individuals with brain injuries. But while AI-driven brain implants could revolutionize memory enhancement, they also raise ethical concerns. If memories can be stored externally or even modified, does this mean they could also be hacked, altered, or erased? If people can download false memories, would they ever know the difference? These questions remain unanswered, but one thing is certain: technology is rapidly changing the way we understand and control memory. Some researchers are also exploring memory erasure as a way to treat PTSD and trauma-related disorders. Scientists have identified specific neural pathways that store traumatic memories and are investigating ways to block or weaken those connections using targeted drugs or electrical stimulation. While this could offer relief to trauma survivors, it also raises concerns about the unintended consequences of erasing parts of human experience. Can we control what we remember and what we forget? Could the ability to edit memories lead to a future where people choose to delete painful moments, altering their own history? These questions remain at the cutting edge of neuroscience, and as the technology advances, the implications become even more profound. Can we ever fully trust memory, or is skepticism the best approach? Despite all the advancements in memory training, lifestyle optimization, and neuroscience, the fundamental problem of memory remains: it is inherently unreliable. Even with the best techniques and technology, memory is always susceptible to bias, distortion, and external influence. Some researchers argue that the best way to deal with the flaws of memory is not to try to perfect it, but to approach it with skepticism. Understanding that memory is imperfect allows us to question our own recollections, verify information, and avoid the dangers of false memories. Instead of blindly trusting memory, the most reliable approach may be critical thinking, evidence-based reasoning, and external validation. This concept has profound implications for everything from witness testimony to personal decision-making. If we know that our memories can be wrong, how much weight should we give to past experiences when making choices? How often should we fact-check our own recollections before acting on them? While we may never achieve perfect memory, we can become more aware of its limitations and take steps to minimize errors. Training the mind, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and using external tools like journals, recordings, and digital reminders can help counteract memory distortions. But above all, understanding that memory is a work in progress, a constantly evolving, sometimes unreliable reconstruction of the past, may be the most important step toward mastering it. As we move toward a future where technology, neuroscience, and artificial intelligence push the boundaries of memory enhancement, one question lingers: should we trust our memories, or should we always question what we think we know? Memory is the foundation of identity, shaping how people see themselves, recall their past, and make sense of the world. Yet, as science has revealed, it is not the reliable, unchanging record that many assume it to be. It is an incredible tool, but it is also flawed, malleable, and sometimes completely false. What people remember with absolute certainty can be misleading, altered, or even fabricated without them realizing it. The journey through the complexities of human memory has uncovered some unsettling truths. The brain does not store experiences like a video camera, preserving every detail exactly as it happened. Instead, it reconstructs, fills in gaps, and even rewrites events based on emotions, external influences, and subconscious biases. False memories can be implanted, traumatic experiences can be erased, and even the most vivid recollections can change over time. This means that no matter how real a memory feels, it is not always a reflection of what actually happened. Eyewitness testimonies have been responsible for wrongful convictions, sending innocent people to prison based on nothing more than misremembered details. Entire societies have fallen into mass hysteria because of collective false memories, believing in fabricated events that never took place. Trauma has caused some to remember moments with excruciating detail, while others have forgotten them completely, leaving behind fragmented recollections that are unreliable at best. Science has provided ways to strengthen and improve memory, from training techniques used by champions to lifestyle choices that enhance cognitive function. Sleep, diet, and exercise all play critical roles in memory retention, proving that while memory is imperfect, it can still be optimized. Advancements in neuroscience and artificial intelligence are pushing the limits of memory manipulation, with technologies like Neuralink exploring the potential of memory enhancement and deletion. These innovations raise profound questions about the future of human cognition. If memories can be implanted, erased, or stored externally, how much of our past will remain authentic? The shocking truth is that your past is not as real as you think. Every time a memory is recalled, it is rewritten slightly, influenced by current emotions, external suggestions, and unconscious biases. The longer time passes, the more distorted those memories become. What people are convinced they remember from childhood, past relationships, or significant life events may not have happened the way they believe. The mind has reshaped and reconstructed those experiences over time, creating a version of reality that is different from the original. This realization does not mean that memory should be dismissed entirely. It is still the foundation of learning, growth, and personal history. However, it does mean that blind trust in memory can be dangerous. The best approach is to trust memories, but verify them whenever possible. Keeping records, writing journals, and relying on external documentation can help counteract memory distortions, but even those are subject to interpretation and personal bias. As memory science continues to evolve, so will the understanding of how the brain processes and recalls experiences. The next time a memory resurfaces, especially one that feels too vivid or too distant, it is worth asking, is this the truth, or is this just the story my brain wants me to believe? Memory is powerful. It shapes identity, influences decisions, and connects people to their past. But as the evidence shows, it is also a trickster, capable of deception. The best way forward is to embrace the mystery of memory while acknowledging its limitations. Before making judgments or trusting recollections completely, remember this: your mind is not a perfect archive, but rather a constantly evolving story, one that is being rewritten every time you recall it. If this exploration of memory has made you rethink your past, then it has served its purpose. The final question remains: have you ever experienced a false memory? A moment where you were convinced of something, only to later find out it never happened or was completely different. Share your experience in the comments, because in the end, the best way to understand